To kick things off, I want to frame why this topic matters. We often think of pet ownership as a personal or emotional decision. Maybe you're a dog person or a cat person. But when we zoom out and look globally, there are definitely patterns there that emerge, and those patterns tell us more than just who loves which animal. They reveal something deeper about culture, geography, and lifestyle. This project is built on the thesis that pet ownership patterns differ by region and that those differences could reflect cultural or geographic influences. For example, warmer climates might favor dogs that can roam outdoors, while dense urban cities may prefer low-maintenance indoor pets like cats, fish, or birds. By analyzing these trends across dogs, cats, birds, and fish, we start to see how pet ownership connects to traditions, climate, urban living, and even economic development. In that sense, pets become a lens for understanding how people live around the world, their values, their space, and their daily life. So as we move through the following dashboards, think of this less as a data set about pets and more as a global cultural snapshot seen through the animals everyone brings into their homes.
So now we're going to talk about the Dataset Summary. Nielsen IQ, or NIQ, is a leading global consumer intelligence company that is headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. In 2023, NIQ expanded its capabilities by acquiring the German market research firm GfK, solidifying its position in the global market. So NIQ pretty much bought the rights to GfK. And GfK is the originators of this study, where they surveyed 27,000 online consumers over the age of 15 in order to see the global trends of pet ownership and how that affects the pet food market. While the original study focused heavily on the pet food market, our group saw the original pet food group graphic, which is shown here, and took a different approach, observing how the trends of different animals by country could reveal certain things such as different cultural attitudes towards pets, or how they reflect the nuances of how people can be similar and or different. Lifestyles and regions show great effect in the types of pets that people have, and that is shown further in this presentation. The data cleaning process was very straightforward, as I took the graphic to my left and put it on an Excel sheet by category. The only thing that needed to be cleaned was that I felt it was important to remove Hong Kong from the study. One, Hong Kong is more of a city state and not its own particular country. And two, China's already represented in the data set. And without the original data, we could not clarify whether or not Hong Kong was already inserted into that information. Some key takeaways from this data set: the prevalence of pet ownership. More than 57% of households from those surveyed were pet owners, or at least own one pet. The most popular pets within this group: dogs were owned by 33% of the people that responded, cats at a 23%, fish at 12%, and then birds fell into the rest of the categories with 6% of all those who responded. The top countries for pet ownership were Argentina at 82%. Mexico was at 81% of pet ownership from those responded, and then Brazil was at 76%. And then for the United States, we see ourselves, as those who, we kind of just live within our own bubble. We actually ranked 5th globally from all the respondents of having at least one pet. So, how this dashboard works. The dashboard utilizes icons or buttons in order to navigate from a global view of the countries. When clicking on the respective animal icon, you get a specific country's percentage of respondents with that pet. Not only that, but the visualization shows that with the higher percentage, the darker the hue of that country is going to be, meaning the country with the highest percentage of that particular pet will be the darkest in comparison to all the other countries. For example, Turkey with birds or Russia with cats. You're also able to hover over the country and see the percentages better and the country's name better if you didn't know your geography or anything like that. So that's how this particular dashboard works.
Each section of this dashboard plays a role in telling a global story about culture, economics, and geography through pets. The map gives global and spatial context. The icons and tooltips throughout reveal patterns and dominance. The filters offer the user agency to explore and validate theories. And finally, the tiles and chart highlight extremes and make comparison easy. Together, they support the thesis that pet ownership isn't random, it's shaped by who we are, where we live, and how we live. I recommend you watching through the next few slides in slideshow mode, as it'll keep coming back to the slide, zooming into the next portion, coming back, and zooming in. At the top of the dashboard, you'll notice 3 animal icons, and to the right, the corresponding color legend. A purple icon represents countries where dog and cat ownership is equal. The red dog icon represents countries where dogs are more dominant, and the blue cat icon highlights countries where cats are more popular. When you hover over these icons, the interactive world map below lights up, showing only those countries that match the selected preference in the corresponding color. If you hover over a country, you'll see a tooltip showing the dominant pet type, the country name, and the dog and cat ownership percentages. In this example, hovering over Canada reveals the cat preference, the country name, and that the dog ownership is only 2% less than cat ownership. This interaction is critical for engaging users visually. It really shows at a glance how preferences are spread across continents. For example, dog-dominant countries cluster in Latin America, while cat-dominant countries tend to appear in Europe and North America. The spatial understanding is the backbone of our thesis, showing how location influences pet preference. Beneath the animal icons, there's a set of highlight tiles summarizing key global insights. The most cat-loving country being Russia, with 57%, the most dog-loving country being Argentina, with 66%, the percentage of countries with dog dominance being 12%, and the percentage of countries with cat dominance being 8%. These highlight tiles immediately anchor the user with these standout stats that should spark curiosity. Why is Russia so cat-heavy, and what about Argentina's love of dogs? They also quantify the global lean, that more countries do prefer dogs, but it's not overwhelming. This contributes to the narrative that pet ownership is diverse and culturally nuanced. On the right of the dashboard is the Explore Patterns section, which contains 2 filters, the continent filter and the economic status filter, which allows users to narrow down the data by selecting from Americas, Asia, Europe, Oceania, Other, or All, and in the economic status filter, to narrow between developed nations or developing nations. This was manually created based on country classifications and allows the user to explore whether economic factors correlate with pet preference. These filters update the map, encouraging users to draw their own insights, like whether cat ownership is more popular in urbanized or developed regions. These filters also allow user-driven explorations to expand past that core thesis and build upon it, like are developing countries more dog-dominant due to outdoor living or traditional views of dogs as protectors? Are cats more common in developed nations due to urbanization and apartment living, as well as less walkable communities or more? These filters really encourage the what-if thinking, prompting users to play around with these filters and test hypotheses about geography, economics, and culture, helping really bring that thesis to life. On the bottom right, there's a drop-down menu and bar chart titled Top 5 Dog versus Cat Countries. The user can toggle between dog and cat to see which countries rank highest in ownership for each. For dog countries, we have Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, USA, and Poland, with the top 5 cat countries being Russia, France, USA, Canada, and Italy. Hovering over a bar also shows the percentage of ownership in that country. This chart shows extreme affinity, which is useful for comparison. It also highlights regional clusters. Latin America dominates in dog preference, whereas Western countries top cat ownership. Notably, USA appears on both lists, indicating a more balanced preference, which reinforces that not all countries fit neatly into one category or another, and this adds complexity to the global pattern.
This interactive dashboard provides key insights into pet owners who prefer small animals such as fish and birds, and the cultural implications of that preference. In this top visualization, you can see a global overview of fish and bird ownership. This parameter in the corner allows you to toggle between ownership of fish birds, and the two combined in order to see the global trends. As you switch between these options, it is clear that Turkey, Belgium, and Australia show higher ownership of fish and birds compared to other countries. The country with the highest bird ownership is Turkey, and the country with the highest fish ownership is China. The tooltips are visible as you hover over each country, and these give you insights into the exact number of bird and fish owners in each country. This next part of the dashboard shows a bar graph of the top 10 countries for bird and fish ownership. Each bar is labeled to show the exact proportion of bird and fish owners. And once again, hovering over the bars will reveal the tooltip for each country. You can use the same parameter that we used before to toggle between bird ownership, fish ownership, and the countries that have both. Similarly, we can see in this final part of the dashboard that we have a bar graph showing countries with the least amount of fish and birds as pets. Once again, we can use that parameter to toggle between the birds as well as fish ownership, and again, countries with both. We can see that South Korea has the least amount of people who prefer birds and fish as pets. Other notable countries that do not have a large population of bird and fish owners are Canada, the UK, France, and the US. We can gain a lot of insight into the culture and preferences of the people in these areas based on the data visualized between the two bar graphs that we have in this dashboard. Pet owners in countries with lower overall pet ownership, such as Turkey, may be more sensitive to the cost of owning a pet, which leads to more of a preference for lower maintenance animals. Countries with higher ownership of birds and fish like Turkey could be influenced by an affinity for pets that require less space and upkeep, leading to a prevalence of birds and fish, which are more apartment friendly than many other furry friends. These countries have higher rates of urban living, which also leads to spatial constraints. Countries that favor birds and fish as pets could also be showing a preference for their aesthetic value, as fish tanks and aquariums can add to interior decor. Countries that have the lower rates of fish and bird ownership compared with cats and dogs may prioritize pets that serve in more of a familial role and provide higher level of companionship and interaction rather than the ornamental pets like fish and birds. For dog and cat products in countries like the USA, the UK, and Spain, with strong preference to dog and cat pet ownership, there may be opportunities for businesses to focus on pet food, toys, grooming services, and pet health products. Businesses can focus on launching or expanding premium pet food products, grooming tools, and health supplements in these countries. Special promotions or subscriptions for dog and cat products could also be introduced. There are also opportunities in niche pet markets. Countries like Turkey and Belgium, which show a higher ownership of fish and birds compared to other countries, may require more specialized products. Businesses could invest in these niche pet markets by creating specialized products like rare fish breeds, aquariums, or exotic pet food. Target markets like Turkey, Belgium, and Australia, where ownership of these pets is higher. Additionally, there are e-commerce opportunities for pet owners. Online pet supply stores can be very useful for businesses given the increasing global pet ownership. There is significant opportunity to sell pet products online. Businesses can develop or expand e-commerce platforms for pet products, particularly targeting regions with high pet ownership. Providing subscription services or custom pet product bundles could increase customer loyalty. Countries like Turkey and Mexico have moderate pet ownership, but may represent emerging markets for pet products in the future. Pet ownership may be rising in these areas as economic conditions improve. Pet ownership is not only a function of income, but also shows a cultural attitude towards pets. In some regions, pets may be viewed primarily as family members, like in the USA. In other countries, they may be considered more as companions or even ornamental decoration. This cultural perspective should inform how products and services are marketed in each country. Countries with high pet ownership, like the USA, the UK, and Australia, might have a saturated market, which means businesses should focus on differentiation and innovative products, as well as superior customer service to remain competitive in these areas.